Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. The Movie Film Podcast, enjoy the show. Zaki and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to Movie Film. This is episode 77, brought to you by Mr. Boy Productions. My name is Zaki Hassan, and joining me, as always, is my good friend Brian Hall.
Hey, what's going on, Zaki?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
I'm doing very well also.
What are the odds?
What are the odds?
So you look rested. You look like you've been on a trip, perhaps?
Oh, I have. Actually, I went and visited my folks over the past week, and I am refreshed and ready to go. I'm ready to record. You
were off the grid.
I was off the grid. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is on a grid, but it's in the corner of the grid.
Yeah.
So. Oh, and you know what? It was funny because we were looking for a movie to watch as a family, which can always be a little difficult to do. And they were like, we ended up watching McFarlane USA, which you had recommended and said was
that's
like
a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie. And it's funny because I told someone at work, and I go, oh, I watched McFarlane USA last weekend. And she goes, oh, so your dad picked it? I was like, he did. But you were right. It was a good movie, like a better than average, like sports flick. You know, and all sports flicks are enjoyable. But the thing is they're very they are by the number, and like the good ones make you forget about the numbers. And I thought this was one that, you know, it wouldn't be a sports flick if it didn't have those beats, but it did a good job of sort of masking the beats and just being a good story. So
well, it's movie math, Brian. Kevin Costner plus sport equals probably a good movie.
Yeah.
Probably, because I don't know. I'm hedging because I can't think of a bad Kevin Costner sports movie. But
yeah, anyway, sure I wanted to remember to tell that to you. So
well, thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen a bunch of movies which I'm assuming you have not had a chance to see, and I figured I'd just share that with you very quickly. I saw The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, how's that? Well,
I liked it. But I'm actually very curious to get the opinion of our third guest who's joining us, if he's had a chance to see it. And we're joined by Sean Gerber. He's the host of Modern Myth Media, which is a terrific podcast. He also co-hosts Making Mine Marvel, and he also produces the Batman on Film podcast. Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Brian and Zaki.
So, Sean, did you see Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
I haven't. I really wanted to get a chance to see it, but I wasn't able to get out in time for the press screening that Warner Brothers had sent to me. I couldn't make that, and then couldn't buy a ticket that was desperately needed according to those results. I wasn't. I was
about to say you and most of America had the same experience.
I couldn't do it. I was busy with the D23 Expo this weekend, so I'm a little bit behind on last week's releases, which also includes Straight Outta Compton, which I'm actually more eager to see and feeling worse about not having seen. But I'll be getting caught up pretty soon.
Well, so I missed the press screening for Man from U.N.C.L.E. too. I had the same issue, so I did it the old-fashioned way, and I forked over.
Zach, no.
I know. But you know, I got to tell you, I don't normally do the whole like paying thing like you normies, as I call it. But they've opened up here in the Bay Area. They have the luxury lounger. Theaters now. You know, they have those. You guys have those, right?
Oh yeah.
Where you book your ticket, you book your seat in advance. It's fantastic. It's like flying United.
Is this where they also serve the meals, or is this just the?
They don't serve the meals, but the seats lean back.
Oh, okay. Well, hey,
yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So I went and saw it, and it's a perfectly agreeable movie that you forget about instantly.
Okay.
And I don't say that in a bad way, because like I enjoy cotton candy, even though it vaporizes the minute it hits my mouth. This is cotton candy. This is film cotton candy.
Okay. Well, that sounds kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's and it's of course it's based on a TV show, which I'm assuming Brian, you probably have not seen.
No, I know it in name only.
Oh, okay. Sean, you ever watched the show?
I didn't even know of the existence of the television show until until I heard that there was a movie coming out that, well, originally like the old rumors of George Clooney being in it, and then before that fell through, and it eventually became a Guy Ritchie film with Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer. But Yeah, I guess enjoyable but forgettable sounds about right. I haven't.
Yeah, the show of course starred Robert Vaughn,
Mhm.
uh, um, and David McCallum, and then this, and by the way, this is how I tie everything back to Superman, because Robert Vaughn was the villain in Superman 3, and of course his
Wow.
role is now played by Henry Cavill, who I'm like Rain Man when it comes to this stuff. I just
Yeah.
But Henry Cavill does a great Robert Vaughn impression, which is a weird thing to say. It doesn't make any sense, especially if you don't know what Robert Vaughn talks like. But
Sure.
he had this very staccato way of delivery. And Henry
Yeah.
Cavill emulates that really well.
Do you get used to it? I thought it was a little showy in the trailer.
Do you get used to it? I don't know, to be honest. It it stops being distracting. I don't think you're ever meant to get used to it.
Okay.
And what I said in my review is that it's almost like he's standing to the side of the action, sort of looking at the audience and kind of like winking at them, like, hey, this is all, it's a lot of fun,
Yeah.
But Armie Hammer, of course, and Armie Hammer, who was cast as Batman in the canceled George Miller Justice League movie. So this is
been best friends with Superman.
Superman
Yeah.
versus Batman before Superman versus Batman. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would recommend it. I would not necessarily recommend going to the theater to see it.
Sure.
It's worth catching at some point.
That sounds good.
But Sean alluded to Straight Outta Compton. Straight Outta Compton, huge, open to $60 million. This is Ant-Man money, people.
It's actually more than Ant-Man money.
More than Ant-Man, that's right. More than Mission Impossible, too, I think.
Yes.
It's franchise money, and it's essentially the origin story of NWA.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a superhero movie, I guess.
Well, how is it like? Because obviously it's a biopic,
Yeah.
and we were just talking about sports films having like a paint by the numbers sort of mandatory formula to them. I mean, does this feel fresh, or does this feel like insert band into biopic movie?
It feels like the latter. It does. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's Brian, you'll appreciate this. It follows the B Sharps template.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So we all this. I mean, it's Jersey Boys. It's all
Right.
It's not a bad thing, because I think the characters in the film, quote unquote, are very compelling.
Right.
And the storylines are very compelling, and it just so happens, I mean, not fortunately, but it just so happens that a lot of the stuff that's being talked about in the film is just as applicable now, 30 years later. We're talking about police brutality and racism and sort of the notion of black voices.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's incredibly compelling regardless, but I think it just so happens to have struck at a particular cultural moment.
Right.
Now, that being said, I didn't listen to NWA growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware of their existence. I mean, everybody knows, F the police, right?
Right.
So for me, I'm not as acquainted with all of the specific ins and outs and the relative truth or untruth of what we see, because it's filtered through the prism of Dr. Dre and Ice Cube,
Right,
because
they're producers.
They're the producers, and Ice Cube in the film is played by O'Shea Jackson Jr., who's his son.
Yeah, which I saw them on Conan together. It was really striking seeing them side by side.
Yeah, he's a dead ringer for his dad. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I will say, of the three actors, sheesh, I should have looked up their names. Of the three actors, he's probably the weakest.
Interesting.
In terms of his performance, and that's because it's his first.
He's not
He's not an actor. I mean, he got the gig because. He got it because of nepotism. I don't think there's anything wrong with that in this particular instance.
Yeah.
But Corey Hawkins, who plays Dr. Day, is fantastic. Jason Mitchell, who's Eazy-E, excellent.
Really?
Both of them are great. I mean, and the drama is very, again, it's very compelling. I was comparing this to Jersey Boys from last year, and even though the two films are only a year apart, Jersey Boys might as well be from like the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just feels so antiquated, even though it's the exact same template.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm really looking forward. I've been looking forward to this movie. I actually did listen to them when I was growing up. I was a little 12-year-old white kid mowing the lawn listening.
I was about to say.
Straight Outta Compton. Seriously, like I can sing almost that whole album. So I'm like, I'm really looking forward. And what I thought was cool about it, which I didn't really realize, was that it also, covers the LA riots and all sorts of things. So I'm sort of interested in seeing like a time capsule film in a way.
Yeah, and see, that's what's interesting to me is because these are events that are, for all three of us, this is within our lifetimes, relatively recent. Like, I mean, I remember that stuff fairly clearly. It's not, and so it's weird to see it become part of the, the biopic ether.
Right. Yeah.
But like I said, I haven't. I'm hesitant actually to, because I haven't written a review of it yet, and I'm actually hesitant to look into the facts and what the fictionalized stuff until after I write my thoughts, because I feel like, I want to just judge it as a film,
Sure.
But yeah, I would absolutely recommend that. And then just very quickly, last thing which I just got out of is American Ultra. And
yeah, I know nothing about this except commercials have been popping up on TV the past week or so, and I'm like, what's that?
So imagine what would happen if Jesse Eisenberg was Jason Bourne.
Okay.
That's the movie.
Okay, so he is competent. Like he's a trained spy.
I don't want to say anything.
Okay, see, that's what I'm not understanding from the trailers. If he's this stoner who's thrust into something extraordinary, or if he's this agent who's like unlocked.
Okay, let me put it another way.
Yeah.
Imagine if a stoner played by Jesse Eisenberg found out he was Jason Bourne.
Okay, all right. So you're saying Jason Bourne specifically because Bourne realizes who he was after an incident.
Correct.
Is it fun? Is it good?
I enjoyed it. It's written by Max Landis, who wrote Chronicle.
Okay.
Which we'll be talking about later in a sideways fashion. And it's directed by a newcomer who I've not heard of, named Nima Nurizadeh.
Okay.
And it's clearly it comes out of the Edgar Wright School.
Hmm.
And so I think you guys will probably enjoy it, but I think you'll like it more or less depending on your tolerance for Edgar Wright impersonators.
Oh, okay. Does it feel anything like when I'm watching a Wes Anderson impersonator and I want to like throw something at the screen?
No, because it isn't like the Edgar Wright version would look different, but this is clearly from that wheelhouse,
Okay.
And it's the Bourne homage is clear to me because the town that the thing is set in is called Lyman.
Okay.
And Doug Liman, of course, directed Bourne Identity. Sure. I would recommend it. I went in completely cold, didn't know anything about it, and I ended up enjoying it. So it's very different. Probably, I say this all the time. Don't watch anything about it. Just go in and you'll. It's short. It's like 90 minutes. So.
Cool. Well, I gotta say, yeah, between this and The Gift, like those are like two movies I'm really looking forward to probably streaming down the line. But like. Yeah. You get the big movies you go and see, and every now and then you're looking forward to watching something just different and, where I don't know what's coming up ahead. So looking forward to checking those out.
Yeah, well, and it opens this Friday, but it's going to get destroyed. Like, this movie will not be a hit.
Sure.
It's going to get steamrolled by Straight Outta Compton. So
right.
Just count. It'll be on DVD, I think, next Tuesday.
All right, well, I'll check it out next Thursday.
You can Redbox it. Yeah, exactly. Right away.
Yeah.
But we do have a bunch of headlines to get to, but before we do that, very quickly, I wanted to share some listener letters that we got. And Brian, this one is for you, following up on an email that we got from Kendra a few weeks ago.
Okay. Oh.
If you remember, you put the challenge out there. You said, Kendra,
I did, yeah.
Recommend a show. And she wrote back and she said, Wayward Pines.
All right. Maybe that's all I needed then. I just needed a little shove, and Kendra gave it to me.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen this. Sean, have you seen Wayward Pines?
I have not. That's one of the things that's on the list, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
My wife has seen it, and she recommended it.
Okay.
But it's M. Night Shyamalan, so I'm like, I'm not sure I trust my wife. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. But I've heard good things, but that's all she wrote. So Wayward Pines.
All right. Well, I will try to check it out. I know it's already done its run, so I'll see where I can stream it somewhere.
Yeah.
Amazon or something.
And one more letter very quickly. This is from Mason. And by the way, both of these emails came to us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. He says, and this is to me, by the way. I occasionally get notes directed to me. Just got the new Apes book, and I really enjoyed your chapter. The Apes book. The book he's referring to, by the way, is Sacred Scrolls, Comics on the Planet of the Apes, which I contributed to. I've never read those comics, but I'd love to track them down. Looking forward to the Star Wars book. When is it due out? Thank you, Mason. He or she. Well, I don't know. Mason is like a gender-neutral name, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I mean, it makes me think of... Dude, why do I know this? I don't know. But remember Mason Gamble was the kid who played Dennis the Menace? Like 1992 or something.
Wow.
That's one of those things that's floating around up there, but I forgot the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah, you know what's funny, though, Brian? I was going to make fun of you, and then I was like, I know that, too.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah. He's also the kid in that terrorism movie with Jeff Bridges. You know what I'm talking about?
Blown
Arlington
Away?
Road. Arlington Road.
Arlington Road, yes.
No, I guess there's a bunch of terrorism movies.
There was a huge, like...
There's the Jeff Bridges terrorism genre.
Yeah.
It was a section at Blockbuster, Jeff Bridges terrorism movies.
Yeah.
And then Tucker. That's just its own little corner.
Tucker.
I don't know why I make fun of Tucker on this show. I really
Man in his dream.
I do that a lot. I shouldn't. Anyway,
Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola. What could go wrong?
Turns out a lot, because nobody watched that movie. But he says, looking forward to the Star Wars book. When is it due out? I actually don't know when it's due out. And the book is called A Long Time Ago. I believe it's due out in December, I'm assuming, to tie in with the new movie. Brian, you read my chapter?
I did.
I had to defend the prequels.
You did. I'll say this. I thought Zaki was like, so what do you think? And I was like, much has been written about the prequel. and I'm the type of guy that just gobbles all this stuff up. But, like, I gobble so much of it up that after a while things start to seem sort of repetitive or like, okay, I've heard this sort of point of view. And I genuinely am not just saying this because we're friends. But, like, I really did feel like it was a worthy addition to the examination of the prequels. And I really enjoyed I plowed through it. It was like 10 pages, and I totally gobbled it up. So it was good.
Well... Thank you, Brian. The check is
worth checking out once it comes out.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, and of course I'll be talking about it on social media. Actually, maybe I won't, because I'm like paranoid about this now. Because I had somebody who was like real upset with me, saying that I'm just whoring my stuff too much. I don't want friends. I want clicks. And granted, this person was kind of a jackass, but I felt bad about it. I'm weird because I overthink things, and now I'm like, I don't know. I have this thing. Should I tell people about it? I don't know. Will they think badly of me? It's very complicated.
Of course you should. Why wouldn't you?
I was going to say, Sean.
Who
I was going to say you probably agree.
Yeah, I mean, I pimp my stuff to my Facebook friends all day long. Of course I would. Why wouldn't I? That's my base.
It's weird because this person said this and they were saying it to be mean, and I'm like, well, fine. But then I'm like, literally for like 72 hours I've been like just sitting there in the dark in the corner,
If Trump can sell "Make America Great Again" hats with his Twitter account, you can pimp your book on Facebook.
That's the bar that I'm going for. That's the Trump bar,
Yeah.
That's right. If the internet can be used for... By the way, speaking of that, this is completely tangent, but did you hear this? The Ashley Madison hack, they leaked the records.
I saw it right before we logged on.
Oh, man. That's hilarious.
So for those of you who don't know, Ashley Madison is this website for people who... I mean, see, we're laughing. It's terrible, but it is funny.
It's kind of funny.
It is. It's a website...
I mean, if your information got leaked, like, you had it coming, so...
Well, you know what I decided is, I teach and I'm a writer. I'm going to give all that up and become a divorce lawyer.
right now? Yeah, this is the week
really
to do
smart.
Yes, I mean, for those of you who don't know, folks, Ashley Madison's this website that people go to. It's like Match.com for horrible married people.
Right. Yes.
And so somebody had a beef with them, and they hacked them. And by the way, I'm not to tell anybody how to do their job, but if you're going on a site like this, why would you use your own? Like, why would you not take care to be anonymous?
Well, here's the thing.
Cover.
I'll
right?
say this. I read an article about this, and this is what's sort of interesting, is that the site guaranteed I knew I was going to have to say this word, anonymity. and the whole thing is if you left the site and you wanted them to delete your info, you had to pay for it.
Okay.
So you had to pay them like $60 to delete your information. So that was one of the things where these people who were hacking it were coming up with all these reasons they thought the site was like really bad, and that was one of them. So they're like, that was, I don't know. There's a whole lot of weirdness going on there.
Well, regardless, there will be many divorces that you'll be hearing about, probably, I'm guessing, in the next week or so. You have to figure that there's like politicians and all kinds of folks who are crapping their pants right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the first article I saw about it today was saying all the .gov emails that they've discovered.
See, I mean, again, I'm not telling anybody how to do their job, but if you work for the government, and maybe don't use
don't use that.
Yeah, that's insane.
If you work for anyone, why would you be using your work email?
Your work email. I know.
On Ashley Madison. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know what? As happy as divorce lawyers are, though, I feel really bad for the family court clerks that are just going to be slammed with all those filings for the next few days. That's not going to be a good. This is not a good week for them.
No. They need to turn it into like a courtroom show, like because it'll last for years and years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These proceedings, it'll be, and with a laugh track probably.
That's a reality show right there. The Ashley Madison arbitration hearings, like that's just totally going to happen.
Right.
See this Hollywood. We give you ideas. We just give them. That one is free.
This will be the Aaron Sorkin movie in 5 years from now.
Well, moving on. That's an actual headline, but we do have some industry-related headlines to get to very quickly. And Brian, a friend has passed away.
Oh no!
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's been confirmed. Community is dead.
Wow. So how many seasons did they make it to? Because I actually fell off toward the end there.
6 seasons.
They made it 6 seasons. Okay, because I know that was their mantra.
They just need the movie.
Yep. All right. And I didn't keep up with it. Sadly, when it was on Yahoo, and you did, right? So did you enjoy it?
Okay. Well, in my defense, I watched the first couple episodes, and I did like them. I have not watched the back 2/3 of the season, not because it was bad, but because Yahoo Screen is very, very inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't like watching stuff on my computer, and I don't have like the app on. There's no Yahoo app on your Blu-ray player. I sound like such a first world I'm hearing myself. But then the app on your tablets, whatever, is not very convenient. It's not a very good app. So I don't know what happened at the end. I'm assuming 2 or 3 members of the cast made it till the end. I know people kept dropping off.
Yeah, well, you got to give them credit because they were a really innovative and original comedic television show. And, I mean, this was like the little engine that could, right? I mean, this show could not be killed. So, I mean, you got to admire it for making it as far as it did.
Well, and when you think about it, they made it this far, and the goal was 6 seasons in a movie. So they got the 6 seasons.
Yeah, maybe it could be 6 seasons in a short film.
There, short. Well, you know what though? They could probably crowdfund a movie.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Oh, we want $5 million for a movie or whatever. I mean, They could probably get it. Just putting it out there.
Anyway, start it up, man.
Very quickly, before we get to the big D23 news, and Sean, you were there last weekend, so we're going to ask you to take point on some of this stuff. But we got, let's see, we got to look at Chris Hemsworth in the Ghostbusters movie. And Brian, you added this to our agenda for today, which tells me you just like talking about Chris Hemsworth.
It's true. It just, and I like teasing you about the new Ghostbusters film, so it's like everything coming together. Yeah.
I am not anti the new Ghostbusters, so I really want to emphasize that. And the reason I want to emphasize that is because I feel like you can't be anti the new Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
Even though I'm kind of anti the new Ghostbusters.
Right. Where do you fall with all this, Sean? How do you feel?
I don't mind the new Ghostbusters movie. I'm happy to give it a shot. I don't have any offense to. I'm not in a position where I feel like it shouldn't be getting made. I'm actually relieved that we can stop talking about the Ghostbusters 3 that Bill Murray refuses to make. I've been on that train for way too long, and I was fed up with that. So I'm just
decades, literally decades.
Yes, so I'm just happy that they are moving in a direction. I'm past the point of caring what that direction is. And then as far as Chris Hemsworth, who doesn't want to talk about Chris Hemsworth? The man's beautiful.
Right? Yeah, he is.
You notice how it seems like it's distracting. I think I've said this before that I find him unfair. I find his existence unfair.
He is impossibly good looking.
Yeah.
Like just impossibly good looking.
My theory of genetics is that when somebody is that good looking, the rest of us are less good looking.
Yeah.
Right.
That's I went to public school, and that's how I believe science works. So.
No, like they're in the dictionary now. Like there's handsome, and then like farther down in the H, there's Hemsworth because it's a whole other level of good looking.
Yeah, and I just love that he's like because he's in this as he's basically the Annie Potts character. He's the male secretary, and then he's in Vacation, and basically he's just the eye candy in both of these.
Yeah, and I like that he's willing to do that and have a little bit of sense of humor about how good looking he is, because I'm sure that's such a struggle for him. I'm glad he's willing to be self-deprecating about it. But
it's a hard life. Yeah.
It's a fun thing for him to do because I think he's a guy who's also getting a chance to flex a lot of his muscles as an actor, figuratively and literally. You know, with literally coming through Thor movies with the Thor stuff with Marvel, but then he's been able to do things like Rush. He's gone and now he's got Heart of the Sea later.
Which looks really good.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is a guy who actually has, I mean, if there's not already enough reasons to envy him, just his career right now is in such a great place where he gets to do the big franchise stuff. He gets to have little small bit parts where he has fun, but he also has tons of stuff to really sink his teeth into as an actor. The guy's he's got everything going for him right now.
It's funny because I totally agree, and I actually think that to some extent, right now he's held back a little bit because of his association with Thor in the eyes of the public, and I feel, I mean, he's not hurting for it obviously, but I think that when his post Marvel phase is going to be a very interesting arc, because I think that he's going to get to bust out and do stuff without having to sort of bounce back into Thor every couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's doing better than Evans. I mean, if we're really looking at the attention getting and the projects that he's getting outside of Marvel while he's still a part of Marvel, he's actually even doing better than Downey in the post Sherlock Holmes area for Downey.
Very true. Good point.
If you compare what Hemsworth was able to do in Rush versus Downey with The Judge last year, and I liked The Judge. I'm not ragging on the film, just talking about its overall performance. The only guy who's doing better than Hemsworth in Marvel right now is Pratt.
Right.
That's a good point.
And starting in October and November of this year, Hiddleston.
Oh right, yeah, he's got a couple of cool things coming out.
Yeah, I think Crimson Peak is the big one that everybody's got eyes on, but I think his Hank Williams biopic for I Saw the Light in November is really going to knock it out of the park for him.
Yeah, I saw like a side by side comparison. It's amazing.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Spot on.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
and he looks the part, and he's a great actor, so it works out.
Yes, he is.
But moving on, so a bunch of stuff. So this past weekend was D23, and this is the big Disney convention. And we mentioned, Brian, I think last month or the month before, when Comic-Con happened, about how it seems like Disney was holding a lot of their big announcements for D23, and I feel like that's been borne out by just sort of the volume of and diversity of reveals that we got this weekend. Some big news, some not so big news. And off the top, this is, in my opinion, the least interesting news to me, but I'd love to hear your take. Pirates of the Caribbean 5 is happening. That's not a surprise because the last one made, I think, more than $1 billion.
Four made $1 billion. I didn't know that.
Four made more than $1 billion. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, I mean, there's an audience for these movies, and I have to point out, I'm not in the audience for these movies. I don't understand why they do so well, and I'm not like, oh, they suck. I don't get it because I've
They just don't appeal to you.
it just didn't do anything for me. Yeah.
Sure.
But Orlando Bloom is back, so he will not be parking cars anymore.
Aw.
Right. I'm way out of line.
Supermodels. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, he'll be back as what was his character's name?
Oh, damn it. It's on the tip of my...
Will Turner. Why do I know that? I haven't seen those
Yeah.
movies. So Sean, are you a Pirates fan?
I am a Curse of the Black Pearl fan.
Okay, that seems to be the consensus.
Yes, I love the first film to death. I remember watching that in the theater and just being blown away by how fun that movie was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the beginning of Johnny Depp's mainstream comeback. And now people will look at that, in hindsight, as the beginning of the end. But I absolutely loved him as Captain Jack Sparrow. And I'm a little bit biased with the news because I was there at D23 when he came out in character, in full costume
cool.
with Jack Sparrow, and was throwing grapes at everybody. And I just thought that was fantastic. But I kind of feel like and maybe it's just me being optimistic and letting the joy of the weekend bleed into it too much, but I kind of feel like there's a little bit more going into this movie than maybe the previous ones had. I think the other ones, when they made it, it was really more of a let's hurry up and get these sequels out because we got something that's really hot and it's working. Mm-hmm. And maybe that didn't, and they kind of leaped before they looked. But I feel like this time they've given enough time after On Stranger Tides to really, hopefully anyway, take a look at this and say, okay, how do we bring this back to what made this a great movie in the first place? I wasn't shocked to hear that Orlando Bloom was coming back as Will Turner. It was really funny as they announced that. My wife was with me, and I just leaned over her and I whispered, what, because he had anything else to do? And, so,
no more Hobbit movies.
Yes, but I like him as Will Turner in those movies, and that's fun. Yeah. I enjoy the first film enough, and even though I don't necessarily love the three that followed them, I was entertained enough by them to be willing to give this franchise at least one more go, but that's still mainly based on how much I enjoyed the first one.
So who's directing this one?
That's a good question. I don't think it's Gore Verbinski. I don't think they brought him back. Let me see.
And he didn't do the fourth one, though, right?
No, that was Rob Marshall, I believe.
Right. And I don't know.
It is Joachim Roning.
Yeah, and Espen
Sandberg.
Yeah, I don't know who they are. And it's written by Jeff Nathanson, who wrote Rush Hour. So that's what we do.
Well, that tells you they're going right back into the comedy of it from the first one. So
that's a good sign if you're a fan of movie one. That means.
I think so, and I think that's where it lost sight of it in movies 2 through 4, is that it focused more on the adventure and the epic side of the of Pirates of the Caribbean, and what really made the first one work is that it was just so whimsical and funny that I think that's what drove it and what brought people into it, because I just remember laughing so hard and having such a good time during Curse of the Black Pearl, and it never quite got back to that in the other ones. It just felt like it was trying too hard to be a big, epic action set piece throughout.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I've only seen the first one, so maybe before the new one comes out, I'll do like a marathon, and I'll come to love it like I did the Hobbit movies.
They are long, and like the Hobbit movies, they're long, so that really is a marathon when you say that.
Not a sprint. Now another Disney sequel, and this one I find the existence of this baffling, and I've heard some negative stuff about what was screened, so I'm actually very curious, Sean, to hear what you thought of this.
Sure.
And this is Alice Through the Looking Glass, a sequel to Alice in Wonderland, another billion-dollar Disney grosser. Another Johnny Depp movie. It's not directed by Tim Burton.
It is not.
It's the James Bobin, I think, who did
the Muppets.
The Muppets, right? So did you see the footage?
I did.
And what was your reaction to this?
I saw footage. I was not I was not in love with this. I felt like of everything that Disney showed off in both the animation panel on Friday and the live action panel on Saturday, I felt like this is probably the weakest of anything I've seen. And I understand in looking at this footage why Tim Burton was happy to produce this a la Batman Forever and not go shoot it as the director.
Right.
Because it just feels like, hey, isn't this weird looking stuff that's kind of like a Tim Burton movie, but there's no actual story or narrative, but there's nothing really behind it. And I think that's what I'm thinking. I didn't love the first Alice in Wonderland that Tim Burton did anyway. So when it came time to make a second one, I understood why. A movie makes $1 billion. I'm not an anti-studios making money kind of guy, so I don't mind it. But at the same time, I was hoping for more. I was hoping for something that would get me more excited about actually going and watching this movie next year, and I didn't really feel that way after the footage. I'll go watch it anyway because I get to see a lot of these movies for free, so I don't have to pay to see it. I don't have to make that a buying decision, but I was left wanting from that footage, especially compared to a lot of other stuff Disney showed off that was really good.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about some of, for example, Toy Story 4.
Yeah, although Toy Story 4, I mean, nothing's been made of that. They
didn't show anything, but they did talk about it a little bit.
They did, and I was a little bit skeptical when I think a lot of people were a few months ago when it was announced that they were going to go back and make another Toy Story film, because like everybody else, I felt it ended as well as it needed to at the end of Toy Story 3. But then all of a sudden you have this genius named John Lasseter who gets on the stage and talks about how it's not just any love story. It's Woody and Bo Peep, a love story that was introduced in the very first Toy Story film. A love story for the ages. A love story for the ages. But not just that, but when John Lasseter believes in this enough that he steps out of the office chair and says he's actually back directing this one, and talks about how he was inspired to do this by his relationship with his wife, and he's got tears in his eyes while he says that. All of a sudden, I have tears in my eyes, and I'm thinking I'm totally sold on Toy Story 4, because that's the thing. I think that's what sold me, is if it's coming. I don't think of John Lasseter as a salesman. I think of him as a pretty heartfelt guy and like I said, a brilliant creative mind who's given us so much, especially over the past 20 years, that if he feels it that sincerely in his heart that this is a story that he wants to tell, then I am happy to let him tell it, and I'm happy to go watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like you said, right? When we heard Toy Story 4, I think like you said, the collective response was like, "Oh, come on, guys, let's quit while we're ahead,"
Yeah.
And I read an article, I want to say it was by Scott Mendelson, where he was talking about how I should check that. I'm pretty sure it's Scott Mendelson, so if it's not, I'll correct it next time. But pointing out that this franchise is for the kids too, and for them, like it doesn't have to be the same experience for them that it needs to be for us,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And how and I was thinking about that because my kids, like, they're huge Toy Story fans. They're out of it right now because it isn't really in the ether. But when it comes back, they're going to be excited again, and they're not going to think about it the same way. It's kind of like how my kids think of the Star Wars prequels. Not to say that there's any real comparison between Toy Story and the Star Wars prequels, but for them, they love the characters and they love that world. And like, why shouldn't this world continue to exist for them? That's that point.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, the characters are too strong to keep in the toy chest. So it's like it's like that arc that they had over the 3 films was nice and tidy and perfect, but it's like, you got to let these characters still, have their adventures because you still enjoy them.
And the thing that we see, at least as far as, I'm not even going to say necessarily Disney in general, but certainly Pixar, is they're very careful.
Yes.
With how they, if Pixar says we have a story for a 4th Toy Story, I say, if you guys say you got it, I want to hear it.
Right. Well, it took them, by the time it's released, it will have taken them 13 years to do a sequel to Finding Nemo. So
there you go.
Every example you look at, except for Cars 2,
That's the one that follows the rule.
Every Pixar film that has a sequel, I mean, it wasn't rushed out because something made a bunch of money. It was there because it eventually got made because there was another story to tell, and of course the financial situation allowed them to justify making a sequel, but the story is what really compelled it, what brought it into existence. And I feel like that's what's happening here with Toy Story 4. And it's a great point about how this franchise isn't just for us anymore, those of us who watched it from the very beginning. And because Toy Story as a trilogy is certainly no more sacred than the original Star Wars trilogy, and that got more movies and is getting more movies made. Right. So if there's more great stories to tell, then it really just comes down to evaluating those stories as they're presented as opposed to just rejecting the idea at the outset.
Well, and talking of Star Wars, that's a good place to segue into Star Wars news. And there was a whole bunch that came out of D23. But Brian, why don't you walk us through some of the stuff that you think is worth talking about, and then Sean, you can sort of chime in with the stuff that you were there to witness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it was a lot of D23, and there's a lot of odds and ends. It just seems like this past week or so.
Yeah.
A lot of nuts and bolts and whatnot. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up that I thought was kind of interesting was this whole little thing about Simon Pegg being part of the story Brain Trust with Episode 7. And J.J. Abrams talked about, I guess in his interview with Entertainment Weekly, about how Simon Pegg was on set quite a bit. You know, they invited him to set, of course, but he would also just show up because he wanted to be there at times. And they kicked around a lot of ideas with him because he's a very outspoken fan of the original trilogy, I should say.
Right.
Because even in his show Space, wasn't there like a whole episode devoted to how much he hated Phantom Menace?
Right.
So I just thought that was interesting and kind of cool to just know that the people who are obviously passionate about this are having their say and their thoughts evaluated with this thing. So it's fans, who are contributing to this film and not just like a boardroom, like a collective, which is kind of cool.
Well, and to that end, I mean, J.J. Abrams has promised no more midichlorians.
Yeah, which, comes as little surprise, I would imagine, but...
But, again, it's worth pointing out, and I'm not defending them, but the midichlorians, for all the grief that they get, it's fascinating to me that they were part of Lucas's original draft. Like, before, the Star Wars, before it became Star Wars, midichlorians were in there.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean that's what's it's
I don't know what to say anymore.
It's what it is. It's like he constructed this amazing, just fascinating realm, right? Like he had to do the math to get to what we saw.
Right.
And he had worked this all out. So in other words, it existed as part of his backstory.
Sure.
We just didn't see it. And so for him, like when he did the prequels, this is kind of what I alluded to when I wrote my that chapter. I'm like, when he did the prequels, it was a lot of like, hey, here's the stuff that I now I get to show you this, and I thought of this, but and we're like, whoa, hey, what's all this, But it was all there,
Yeah. Actually, I feel like it was in that audio book. What was it called? Can you remind me? The Star Wars one?
How Star Wars conquered the universe, I believe.
Yeah, because I think I remember hearing recently, I think it was in there, where Lucas was like defending the whole concept of midichlorians, where he was saying like, look, I never said these were the things that the Force was made up of. This is how your body, like something your body produces reacting to the Force within your body or something like that. Which I was like, oh, well, that's a little different. But it's too late.
I'm pretty sure he like, if you listen to the commentary track for the Phantom Menace, I'm pretty sure he does go into that in there.
Yeah, well, and we can go down this rabbit hole. We could have.
I'm not defending midichlorians. I don't care. But I again,
that requires watching the Phantom Menace again. So
which I did recently, and it was tough.
I did last year for a commentary track that I was doing for Star Wars with Friends with.
Oh yeah.
I was doing with Justin Bolger, and it was much easier to do that actually if watching that, being able to talk over it with pals as opposed to having to watch it straight up. But I'm sure I'll probably go through an episode 1 through 6 rewatch on the way to 7. But 1 through 3 is going to be rough.
Well, it's. I've mentioned this to Brian before. Right now, I'm watching the Clone Wars series with my boys because
Okay.
we watched Attack of the Clones, and then we're going through Clone Wars, and then we'll watch Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
And I've said it before. I'll say it again. I feel like that's the only way to actually feel the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker is to actually see him be a hero. On that show,
Right.
So that's a show that I do recommend for all. And it's like, I don't know. I would say like I've seen about 2 seasons of it so far. It's like, I don't know. It's like 75% good.
Okay. Well, it's not bad.
Because I mean, every once in a while you get like a clunker of an episode. There's an episode actually that features Jar Jar. That's actually really good.
Yeah.
He's mistaken for a Jedi, and it's actually really good. So
Yeah.
make of that what you will.
Yeah. Well, something else that I thought was kind of interesting was they talked about the current running time
Oh yeah.
of episode 7, and they have it at 124 minutes. And obviously that's going to change between now and December, reasonably. But I was sort of relieved to hear that. I mean, there's this like current trend now where like tentpole movies are like minimum 2 hours 20 minutes.
Sure.
And it's just too much. I think some stories warrant it. Something like The Dark Knight, which is like stuffed to the gills with story, but like most films don't really require that much time. And
Sure.
I was like 124. That's a sweet spot. That sounds pretty good.
I think Avengers 2 was about 2.5, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It just gets
That could have lost about 20 minutes probably.
it gets exhausting.
Yeah.
But anyway, it looks like they're shooting for what sounds like, I mean, who knows? We could see it and be like, oh, we needed 15 minutes more. But
But isn't it better to watch a film that's about 2 hours and be like, oh man, I would have loved a little more of this, or a little, like
Yes.
where it still feels complete, but as opposed to like this is too long, or why is this pod race 47 minutes long? It's really long.
yeah.
I would much rather be left wanting more than
Exactly.
wanting less. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, segueing into the D23 news, we could start with the Drew Struzan poster that was debuted. And what did you guys think of this? So Drew Struzan, who I think most of our listeners will know, but he is like an iconic movie poster artist, and he's done, I mean, you name like in the past 30-some years something that you think is iconic and probably have on your wall, Back to the Future, like a lot of the Star Wars. He didn't do the original Star Wars posters, but the ones that came years later that people
special
are
editions.
almost as recognizable. Yeah. And anyway, so he did a one sheet for episode 7.
And this is not the release poster. It's a promo poster.
Yeah, it's D23 exclusive.
Right.
Yeah. And well, what did you guys think of it?
I got one. So
Yeah, did you get one?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. They handed it out to everybody who attended that presentation on Saturday. I loved it, and I love the assumption that I'm going to make that if he took the time to go ahead and do this poster, that he's also doing the main one sheet that will eventually be revealed, which I think is what absolutely has to happen. I try as much as I can to cut Disney some slack for the repeated use of the floating head poster, especially with a lot of the Marvel one sheets. And some of them have actually worked out and been okay, but some of them have not, and I was really not looking forward to anything from Star Wars: The Force Awakens being like that. I think with Star Wars, there's a tradition of Star Wars movie posters that I think has to be upheld. So this was a nice preview of that. I love the image that's on this poster, and it just gets me excited with what's going to happen on something. Instead of being something intended for an 11 by 17 handout, what's he going to do with 27 by 40?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's a lot of. I think it's interesting what's not on the poster. Like some people were sort of saying, well, like Han Solo seems a little slapped on there, and this and that and whatever. And I'm like, well, that's because they haven't officially revealed Luke Skywalker yet. And there's a lot of characters that they're like, holding their cards and waiting to do them in due time. So they're showing us what they want to show us now. So I can understand why, some feel it's a little incomplete, but it's like this is just like you're saying, this is a treat. This is a nice little teaser gift that they're. Like you said too, like it seems like a warm up for Struzan.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think it was also meant to be representative of who was actually there. I mean, it was on stage. It was Harrison Ford and John Boyega and Daisy Ridley. The only one I think who's on the poster who didn't make the D23 is Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, but you got to have your bad guy on there somewhere.
Right. I agree that the pose that Han Solo was on, I found it a little distracting because he looked very vaguely like "get off my lawn" ish. But here's what I thought was interesting is that we look at this poster and we're not like, who are these characters? Like, who are, we're like, oh,
Yeah.
there's Rey and there's Finn, and like we haven't even seen it yet.
I know.
And
We already know them.
yeah, we've embraced them into, and I think that's so fascinating because it says something about how Disney has marketed this thing, where it's like a two-hander, where essentially by virtue of giving us a glimpse of Han Solo, that allows us to accept these completely new faces.
Yep.
Like I think that's fascinating.
I was thinking about that. Like, yeah, these kids, Boyega and Ridley, man, they got a lot riding on them.
Yeah.
Like I in some ways like feel bad for them. Like it's like this series is resting on their shoulders. That's a crazy spot to be in. I mean, because I thought this because I saw a lot of pictures coming out where they were posing with fans, and holding up their action figures. And it's funny. It's like for a film that is still months away, and we don't even know who their characters are. Like Abrams has said recently that they've intentionally withheld their last names.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's just a lot of pressure on those guys.
Well, I mean, and without getting into spoilers, I mean, obviously there's something about family connections, and I think from what I understand, Rey's last name is Hutt. She's actually Jabba's daughter. That's the big twist. Rey the Hutt.
December 18th, we're like, well, I'll be damned.
But other big news as far as Star Wars, Brian?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear more from Sean, actually, with these things, since you were there, with the announcement of Colin, well, I'm going to give it away here, but Colin Trevorrow directing Episode 9. So what was that like?
Well, everybody reacted, I think, pretty positively to it in the audience, but I think that everybody in that audience was reacting pretty positively to everything. So it was kind of hard to, a little bit hard to gauge what the real feeling is there. Although, and we had heard, I think, I'm sure you guys had followed along with the rumor mill. I mean, the Colin Trevorrow Episode 9 rumor's been going on since right around the time of Comic-Con last month. And for me personally, I'm excited by the idea of a different director being brought on for each episode in the new trilogy. That excites me. I like the idea of changing up the vision and allowing different guys to come in and tell their chapter of this bigger story, and especially knowing ahead of time that there's already been kind of a big overarching outline of where this is going, even if a lot of the odds and ends and details haven't been filled in. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm also a little bit worried because I liked Jurassic World, but I had a lot of fun with Jurassic World, but I don't really consider it all that great of a movie.
Sure.
And I feel like it's just a very superficial good time. Mm-hmm. And sure. I kind of feel like the bar for Star Wars, especially if this was a Star Wars standalone film, I'd probably say hell yeah and immediately applaud it. But as the last film in this trilogy, the bar for where I'm setting the bar for Episode 9 is far above where it was for Jurassic World. So that's the concern I have of Colin Trevorrow taking what he did in Jurassic World and bringing it up to where a story needs to be for Star Wars. Now, they didn't say he's writing it, so
right.
And I know he co-wrote Jurassic World, so maybe they'll bring in a stronger screenwriter or keep Rian Johnson around to help the writing with Episode 9. So as long as there's a really strong screenwriter on there, not just Colin Trevorrow, then I'll probably feel much better about it. It's just he's going to need a lot of strong script support, I think, because even though I like Jurassic World and Safety Not Guaranteed is a perfectly fine film, I haven't seen enough from him yet to have me feel like this is a guy where if you hand him Episode 9, just let him do his thing and I won't worry about it.
Yeah, and everything you read from J.J. Abrams, I mean, there's just so much passion and thoughtfulness. Mm-hmm. And, he brings a lot of experience with him already, and he really does seem, for any of the missteps he's even had, he just seems like he comes from the school of the guys who we would have wanted making these movies, Yeah. And so, and I don't feel the same sturdiness from I say his name wrong. Trevorrow. I always say
we-
Trevor or something.
We've
But yeah,
been saying it wrong for years. It seems like.
Yeah. No, but I'm completely agree with everything you just said there. Same thoughts. So we'll see.
I mean, I think that each of these guys has. I think they benefit from the fact that they're sort of within the womb of this machine, and I think what's going to happen, and maybe I'm off on this, but I think the Star Wars machine is going to be just like the Marvel machine, where the directors will probably not be allowed to wander too far off the reservation, but they also won't be allowed to fail.
Sure.
In that there's you're sort of cloaked, or
Yes.
shrouded in the franchise machine, and obviously that this conversation will kind of contrast with what we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But before we get to that, very quickly, Sean, I would love to get your take on the big Marvel presentation that happened.
Yeah, Marvel actually got to lead off the live-action panel, which I figured was a smart call on Disney's part. I was wondering what order they would go in. Star Wars had to close, and then opening with Marvel seemed like a good idea because then nobody would pay attention to the Disney live-action stuff. Everybody just would be, all right, give me Marvel and Star Wars. But the Marvel portion of it was really good. I was pleasantly surprised that my prediction was correct in that even though it was my prediction, I was still surprised to see it actually happen. We did get Doctor Strange concept art, and it looked bananas. The movie doesn't start shooting until November, so there's obviously no footage for Marvel to bring, but they had kind of this reel of concept art with a voiceover of Scott Derrickson talking about the film, and Benedict Cumberbatch also had a pre-recorded video clip to kind of introduce the footage and introduce the concept of the film, and it looked exactly like I thought a Doctor Strange movie should look. It's just so out there and psychedelic and all these crazy things going. You see the astral projections, you see the alternate dimensions, all these crazy things. The costume of Doctor Strange is, I love the way Marvel and their MCU they don't make any apologies for the costumes of these characters. It's a very, very faithful adaptation. The collar is not out of control. It's not shooting above his head. It's up about midway point to the back of his head, but he's got his blue, what is that he wears? Is it like a blue robe, his blue shirt, whatever it is? Like he's wearing that and his big red cape.
Puffy shirt. It's like Seinfeld. The puffy shirt.
Yeah, he's got the puffy shirt. Like it's all in there, and it looks great. And I mean, and this is artwork drawn as with Benedict Cumberbatch in his what I assume is going to be his costume, and it all just looks so perfect. And it shows me that Marvel is doing kind of what they did with Guardians of the Galaxy, not in terms of literally copying what they did with Guardians of the Galaxy, but the same spirit of that, of taking this property that just seems so far out there and so far beyond what you might ordinarily do in a comic book movie, especially one that's more superhero driven, and they are just going all out with it, and it just looks great. And Tilda Swinton in the concept art of her as the Ancient One looked great. All of it was great. And then they actually did kind of a little previs, like animatic with the concept art at the end, which is Benedict Cumberbatch as Strange, like conjuring like these yellow energy balls like in his hands, and then doing like Hadouken from Street Fighter with them. Like it was just, and it blew my mind, and everybody just lost it at the end of that footage, and everybody went crazy for the Doctor Strange stuff. And then when they did the footage for Captain America: Civil War, that's the stuff I knew that we were going to get. I mean, they've been shooting that for a few months. They're actually right now in the very last week of principal photography on that. And that footage was epic. And it makes me feel like, a lot of, I mean, I know that word gets tossed around with trailers all the time, but the footage that we had, I mean, it starts off with a fight between Captain America and Crossbones that sets up, that goes right back into Winter Soldier. Of course, Frank Grillo as Crossbones, or as the not yet Crossbones in Winter Soldier.
Right.
He's now as Crossbones, and he teases back into the search for Bucky, and I think that's what I like so much about this footage, and I'll go with more details in a minute, but the overall thing about this footage that I love so much about it is that it's very much a Captain America movie. I think a lot of people were worried about this when you see, especially that press release when they started shooting, all the character names that are in this movie, and everybody says, well, this is Avengers 3. And it's not. Based on the footage that they showed me, or they showed it just to me. No, based on the footage
Let you into a room on the side.
Based on the footage that they showed at D23, it seems very, very much focused on Cap and Bucky as a continuation of the story from Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which I think is great. But then when you get into the more Civil War aspects of it, of the heroes fighting each other, what I love the most about it is that, especially if you compare this maybe to Batman v Superman, and I know that's going to make people hate me, but I feel like this one has a more natural conflict, and I think a conflict that's going to work better for audiences, because when you hear Tony Stark's dialogue of talking about, well, what would you call someone if they had a power and they were just using it however they saw fit, whatever they thought was the right thing, and versus Cap's position of obviously just wanting to be a hero and save people. You don't really strongly disagree with either of them. They both kind of have a valid point in this, and I think that's key, is that neither one necessarily comes across as a villain in this. They just really have conflicting points of view, and that, of course, is dividing the line with all the other heroes. And then the last couple bits that I'll just throw out as really fun parts, where there's two really cool shots of Black Panther in this footage. There was one shot of, you don't really see, you see kind of like the back of his mask, but where you see him is his claws are gripping Captain America's shield. Like they're gripped the top cap shield and they're like pushing it down. So that tells me we're getting a Black Panther Captain America fight, which if you read like early Avengers comics, Black Panther kind of wins. And then the other bit, there was one shot where he actually got like a frontal shot of like his mask and kind of the upper body of the costume, which looked great. And then I really loved the bit at the end where they brought in Scott Lang, which was teased in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man earlier this summer. We see that first meeting of Scott Lang and Captain America, which is just absolutely priceless, because Paul Rudd as Scott Lang just goes into total fanboy mode and is just geeking out over the fact that he's meeting Captain America, which is appropriate. Like, that's what you would do. I mean, for all the talk of realism in superhero movies, that is what would realistically happen. If a dude named Scott Lang just a guy named Captain America, that's kind of how it would go. And he just stutters and stammers. You can't even talk. He just says, thanks for thanking of me for being asked to join the team. It was brilliant. And then even when he turns behind him and sees Scarlet Witch, like, oh, I've seen you. You're cool too. Like, but then goes right back to geeking out over Cap. It was awesome. It was a perfect, comedic end note to the footage, which was just, it was crazy. I was happy with the Batman v Superman trailer, and also really encouraged by the Suicide Squad footage, and thinking all of a sudden 2016 might be DC's year. But based on what I saw, I mean, Marvel's not going anywhere between Doctor Strange and Civil War.
So both of those. So Civil War is next May. Doctor Strange is in the fall, I believe.
It's November 4th, 2016.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Ant-Man. I actually just saw it again yesterday. Yeah, yesterday was my anniversary, and this is why my wife is awesome, because she was like, "Hey, I want to see Ant-Man," so we saw it. And what's interesting is that it was, I mean, it's been out for more than a month now. Mm-hmm. This is a midday show, and it was packed.
Wow.
Wow. Packed. And this movie is headed towards somewhere between 165, 170 million domestically. Mm-hmm. So this is an unquestionable win for Marvel, even though there was a lot of poo-pooing going on at the beginning, because it made $58 million, which is just, I mean, my gosh, like how do you justify that,
Right. It's all poo-pooing by people who don't know what money is, or how exactly it works. Because
that's exactly right.
Ant-Man, what people don't realize when they look at Ant-Man still sitting in the $300 million worldwide range, is they don't know that it hasn't opened in the very Marvel-friendly markets of China, Japan, and South Korea, which it doesn't even get to until September. So Ant-Man actually has a very good chance at passing up Thor, which is somewhere around, I think, 449 million worldwide. So if Ant-Man tops that gets above 450, it will be Marvel's biggest first movie, except for only Guardians of the Galaxy and Iron Man. So Ant-Man actually has a chance to be a pretty nice sleeper hit for Marvel on a level that a lot of people feel like it's not quite getting there. It is. It's just on a more slow but sure pace.
It's doing it organically.
Right. The way movies used to make money.
Right.
Well, and Sean, I mean, to your point, look, I mean, you just mentioned one of your favorite bits in the sizzle reel that you saw. How many people who haven't seen Ant-Man are going to watch Civil War and be like, I love that guy. I want to go see that again. I mean, this thing is going to have a shelf life.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, worth pointing out, Sean, your quote from your review made it into the TV spots for Ant-Man.
It did.
Nice.
I called Ant-Man fun for the whole family because it is, and Disney found that good enough to be a pull quote, and there it is.
That's a bucket list moment if you're a film critic, right?
It was. Especially, for me, it was always being a huge comic book and superhero fan. I always hoped that if I ever got a pull quote, that it would be in one of those movies. So to have it be on an MCU movie is pretty nice.
That is pretty. The closest I've come to that kind of notoriety, I think, Brian, I had mentioned this to you. If you go to WikiLeaks and look through the Sony.
If you go to WikiLeaks.
Yeah, I know. if you search the hacked Sony documents, I'm in there a few times as my reviews for whatever movies are mentioned. So I'm in that same batch of stuff, like where Amy Pascal and Scott Rudin are arguing, and I'm in there too. I'm part of that whole. I'm in WikiLeaks. There.
And she's like, Zaki burned us again, and slammed her fist on the table.
And that was before my Pixels review. So now, okay, so we're talking. Okay, so Marvel, never bet against Marvel, I think is the lesson here. But that should be couched by.
Having said that,
but having said that, the Hollywood Reporter just bet against Marvel in an article today. But what are you going to do?
No. What did they say?
Something about. Let's see. What was it? Something about to the effect of everybody's waiting for the Marvel bubble to burst, that eventually they're going to lose. So it questioned the problems that they're going to have with Civil War and with Doctor Strange, and that one of these Phase 3 movies, it's finally going to come up and bite them, that one of these movies is not going to be a mega hit, or that people will, now that Marvel has become the dominant force in the genre, that they've lost their position as the underdog that people would be rooting for, and that now people might see DC as the underdog, which anybody who thinks of DC as the underdog just has no sense of history for comic book movies, or the way comic books and comic book and superhero iconography works in general. But kind of predicting that eventually at some point the audience is going to say enough from Marvel and let's go with somebody else. But I think you really have to look at Marvel now as kind of the Pixar of superhero movies, that this is a brand that has built trust with an audience, and they have not betrayed that trust at any point, and I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah. Well, and what you raise a really interesting point, which is this notion of Marvel being equivalent to Pixar in that the trust that people have. I think what's fascinating is that trust is sophisticated enough that people know the difference between a Marvel Studios film and a film that is based on a Marvel property.
This summer would be pretty indicative of that. If you look at something called Ant-Man that's made by Marvel Studios and opens at around $58 million versus something that features Marvel characters but is not made by Marvel Studios that opens at about $25 million.
And with that, that's a perfect segue. Thank you, Sean, for doing that.
I host podcasts, so I know what you're looking for.
Well, so we're talking, of course, about Fantastic Four. That's our big spoiler film for this week. And Brian, I have to give it up for you. You have not seen Straight Outta Compton, but you did watch Fantastic Four.
For you guys.
That's dedication. That's dedication.
That is.
Now we've been talking about this film basically from the time from before it started filming, and we've gone back and forth about its quality, relative quality, why haven't we seen anything, et cetera, et cetera. It came out, and as Sean said, it opened. Now it was projected to open between $45 and $50 million. It opened to around $26 million. So they were off by a bit.
Yeah, and its second weekend it made eight. Right? 8 million in its second weekend.
Yeah.
It dropped just a little bit less than like 69% from weekend 1 to weekend 2.
So here's okay. So normally we do like our non-spoiler reactions to the movie, and then we dive into spoilers. I propose that we dispense with the non-spoilers and just get into it.
I don't even think you can spoil this movie, and I don't even mean that as like
it comes pre-spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something has to happen for a movie to be spoiled.
Yes. So, I really feel like what I'm gonna start this off with this. Like, I know we're gonna like crap on this movie, and we're gonna talk about whatever. But like, I really want to get to the root of what prevented this movie from being good.
Yeah.
Like I was watching it, and I was like, this film should be taught to screenwriting classes.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I'll get into that a little bit down the line as we go. But there's like a lesson here. I think a valuable lesson for people that are looking how to make a movie.
Okay, so Brian, you saw it most recently.
Yeah.
So why don't you start us off, and then we'll sort of jump in with you as we're going along.
Okay. Well, I'll start with just general thoughts. It has been inescapable. Every single day, article after article after article about how terrible this movie is, why this movie's terrible. Everyone on the crew is now anonymously coming forward and talking about how terrible it was making the movie. Nobody likes Miles Teller. Like, it's just stuff, constantly. And so I go into this movie with all of this in my head, and everyone calling this the worst movie of the year. And it's like people were sort of like waiting to have the movie they could like crap on and be like, here's what's wrong with everything. And and then they did it with this one. So I'm like, oh man, how am I even gonna like give this movie a shot?
Sure. So,
but I tried. So I went in, and I was getting worried because 30 minutes in, I was like, I don't hate this. Like, I don't know, this is okay. And even an hour in, I was like, this isn't that bad. Like, there's some things you wince at, maybe like some acting or lines or whatever. But I was like, this isn't a terrible movie. But then what happens is you can completely tell where they decided this is the problem with this movie. There were two sides that had two ideas, very, very different ideas about what this movie was. And the first hour or so, I would argue, is one person's idea, and then the other people were like, nope, you're done. And then they went and just, regardless of what came before it, decided to do their version of what they thought this movie should be. And so that what you end up with is they started building, ideas and characters and concepts and notions, but then all of a sudden they just rip a chunk out of the story, where basically these people get their powers kind of late in the movie for a superhero film. Typically you think
Way
it would
late.
happen maybe you think it would happen at the end of the first act or beginning of the second act, somewhere around there, but they don't get their powers till like way late in the second act.
It feels like close to an hour in.
Yeah, and it's a 90-minute movie.
Right.
So
Which, you can take an hour to turn your main character into a superhero if your Batman Begins, but if not, don't do it.
And you can tell that's really what they were trying to do. And I didn't hate it. I really didn't hate what they were trying to do with this like grounded, like let's get to know these guys. They show Reed as a kid and what he's like, and then it's like about his journey becoming this like actual scientist and with his concepts of teleportation. And I actually was like really with it. I was like, okay, like I'm kind of invested in these guys. I liked his, Jamie Bell as his friend, Grimm, and I was like, all right. But then there's this whole chunk where they get their powers, and instead of like seeing them like discover them and figure out, well, what does this mean to me and who do I want to be with these things, that whole part has been ripped out of the movie, and they just go 1 year later.
Yeah.
Right?
No, they TiVoed it. They just fast forwarded through the commercial.
Fast forwarded about 25 minutes of the movie, and then they go into well, we got to have, our big climax, but there's been no middle. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it just felt really disingenuous and frustrating. And I wouldn't call it a bad movie. I mean, this isn't a movie. This is like a really large movie that was band-aided together. It was hacked up and band-aided together. And so that's why I say it feels more like a lesson than anything else. And I mean, I don't want to dominate right now because there's more things specifically I'd like to bring up later. But let's hear what you guys overall thought of it.
Yeah, Sean, go ahead.
I hated this movie. I hated this movie for pretty much almost everything after minute 3.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm with you, Sean.
I don't think this movie holds up for an hour. I think there's maybe about 3. I can't quite tell, too. 3 or 4 different movies trying to get made here, yes. And none of them are thought out well enough to actually become good. It's case. I could really start off with the very beginning. It starts off with this actually kind of charming, goofy scene that could be Spielberg or even J.J. Abrams aping Spielberg in Super 8, where you have young Reed Richards. He's 10, 11 years old. He's in his classroom talking about teleportation, and all that seems like it's charming. It's ridiculous, but it's charming and it's fun. And because I know that Reed Richards is supposed to be a genius, I'm willing to go along with you and say, okay, yeah, Reed Richards is definitely the kind of kid who, he's the brilliant mind that could come up with teleportation as an 11-year-old. I don't even care that he's got an N64 controller as part of the contraption in his garage. I'll go with it. But the problem is, like, this opening scene is in the wrong movie because this is not a grounded and gritty approach to Fantastic Four. If you're trying to do that origin story, you don't have an 11-year-old invent teleportation in his garage with stuff from the junkyard. Like that, if you want to make this a lighter, MCU movie, it doesn't even have to be MCU. If this is just kind of a lighter take on it, which actually works very well with Fantastic Four, then I think that works in this movie. But it doesn't end up fitting it because in the very next scene, we've got, for some reason, I don't know who thought that It's Clobbering Time needed a backstory, but to make the backstory a smack upside the head delivered to an 11-year-old from a grown-up older brother, why? Like, It's Clobbering Time is just something that's fun and triumphant. Like, why does that have to call back to something traumatic and gross and disgusting? Like, and
I agree with
something,
that.
and something unpleasant. I don't understand where that comes from. And then,
wait, can I add to that real quick? Because I was going to say, if you were picked on by some dickhead when you were like a kid, and it's just like, I'm going to punch you in the face, douchebag. Why would you adopt that as your line later in adulthood?
You wouldn't.
Right.
You wouldn't. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Like, and this is the thing that they don't. This is totally the difference between whoever wrote that bit and the people who write much better comic book movies is that it is a goofy, cheesy line. So if you're going to pay attention to it in any way, you have to approach it with levity. That's the only way you can really ground it. So when the Fantastic Four first come together and fight, and he says, it's clobbering time, you have everybody give him a look like, what the hell was that? And he can just say, sounded good to me, and you're off and running with it.
There you go.
And I think, and I don't even, write scripts, but even I can think up that much. So, and then, you have just the next bit. I'm willing to buy the contrived meeting that Dr. Franklin-Storm is trolling for his next brilliant science, brilliant scientist at high school science fairs. Okay, fine. That works. And, and Reed, proof was in the pudding. Reed proved himself to Dr. Franklin-Storm because he quite literally teleported something and brought it back. All that's fine. But then we have the next scene, then it's time to bring Johnny into the story. By the way, we've lost Ben. Ben's gone in Oyster Bay, doing whatever you do in Oyster Bay, which I guess is nothing.
Just hang out, wait.
You hang out and wait for your buddy to call you.
And want to go to another dimension?
But Johnny Storm is brought into this story in just the worst, most ridiculous way. Because again, this grounded, supposedly realistic sci-fi story has the dad who is picking his son up from, was it the hospital or jail? I guess the hospital, because he's got a broken arm from in a car accident because he totaled his car in an illegal street race. And by the way, the car was totaled because this engine that he built, this brilliant engineer, Johnny Storm, his car couldn't hold up through one race. So instead of doing what most parents would do, which is, trying really hard to kill that kid and not go to jail, or just, ground the hell out of him, Dr. Franklin Storm says, this is a teachable moment about responsibility for my son Johnny, so I'm going to go ahead and punish him or have him get money for the next car that he's going to destroy by working on my super secret fate of the world hanging in the balance teleportation project, which if you want to say that's a bad parenting decision or a bad scientific decision, all that's fine, but nobody questions it. And at no point, and it just, and that's all this movie wants to do is tell you things without actually doing anything to legitimately make its point. So with that whole thing with Johnny, it's like, instead of having Dr. Storm say, you're a brilliant engineer, or show me Johnny being a brilliant engineer. And just when Reed says, can you weld? And Johnny says, yeah, that's not engineering. That's welding. So Johnny's position in there is not qualified at all. He's just there because Johnny Storm is supposed to eventually be there. I could go on and on, but I'm sure Zaki's got punches he's ready to throw out. But just... yeah. A few points in the very early going of this movie that already had it off the rails for me.
Yeah, I agree with you to the extent that part of the problem, and I would assume, Sean, you and I are coming at it from the same place, is that we're in addition to being film fans, we're also Fantastic Four fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in and I was like, you know what? I'm not expecting Lee and Kirby. Fine.
Right.
Give me a good movie and I can try to judge it on that. And this wasn't even that.
No.
And you guys have done the heavy lifting as far as the front end. You know what? I need to talk about the back end specifically. How is it this hard to do Doctor Doom? I'm not understanding how we can have 3 movie Doctor Dooms and all of them are terrible.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand how the coolest villain not named Joker just can't be done right in movies. I don't get it. He's not hard. He's got a fantastic look for a costume. His actual costume, not this melted plastic on the face thing that they went with here with like peas for eyes. I don't know what that was, but yeah, this is a character that just totally works. And I think there's still this thing where they insist on tying his origin to the Fantastic Four, and right. I feel like that's already sending it in the wrong direction, and maybe the what needs to happen is do what they did in the comic books. I mean, Doctor Doom shows up around, I think, issue 5 of Fantastic Four, yeah. And maybe that's what they need to do in the movies is if they're going to do an origin story, which, dear God, they better not do another origin story, because they really need to allow another villain to come in the early going and maybe bring Doctor Doom in later, because this whole tying into the origin thing is not working. Not that it couldn't possibly work. I mean, there's plenty of other things that go wrong with this Victor Von Doom.
Yeah.
But I think I think they're just not focused in the right area with the character at all.
So the film is just a mess, obviously, but there have been other messes released that haven't had quite the amount of shrapnel that this one has. Mm-hmm. And so I need to. I mean, this to me is fascinating, and we saw this play out in real time. Yes. Brian, you'll recall opening night. I texted you a screen grab of a tweet that Josh Trank, who's the director. We haven't mentioned the director, Josh Trank, who did Chronicle.
Right.
He sent a tweet, and the tweet said, my version of this film would have been amazing. You're never going to see it, and oh well. That's reality. I'm paraphrasing. That's the gist of it. And he quickly deleted it, but of course, in internet land, nothing is ever deleted. And so this started.
He would have been better off leaving the tweet up there.
I agree with that. Yeah. But Brian, I sent it to you, and I said this movie broke Josh Trank. and I feel like you can draw a straight line between how. The disparity between the projections and the actual weekend and the storm that his tweet generated. I mean, it didn't help that the reviews were just. I mean, it was just everyone was taking a steamer on this, but
right.
I mean, have you guys ever seen anything like this where a director disowns it the day the movie's coming out?
I know. No, not that I can think of.
You know, it's
And you wonder how
unprecedented.
much in dollars damage that did.
I don't think it was that much. I know the Wrap ran that report of, it was $5 to $10 million. I don't know how you come up with that figure, by the way. But I don't know where the estimate comes from. But I mean, this movie was already headed in a wrong direction. And I think where, as much as we like to say that mainstream audiences don't pay attention to critics, that's not really true anymore. Because what they pay attention to, they don't pay attention to individual critics and individual reviews. But I know a lot of people who are the general audience that
who go to Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes, who know what the Rotten Tomatoes score is on something, or at least they know the general range. And when you have something that is single digits on Rotten Tomatoes, which never happens.
That's rarefied air, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that is. Yeah, it's not a good rarefied air either. You don't climb up. You don't climb up to Everest to take that in. I think people became aware of how bad this movie was, and the reviews were just so venomous in places that even when I went into seeing the movie, because some of the reviews had already come out, and I thought I went into it thinking, oh boy, like this might be really bad, but then I also was thinking, there's no way it's this bad. There's no way it's this bad. And it is that bad, which is the unfortunate part of it. But that's why I kind of think that regardless of Trank's tweet, I think there are more people, just looking at the average moviegoer, I think there were more of them that were aware of the Rotten Tomatoes score than there were aware of Trank's tweet.
Sure.
So I would say that the reviews probably cost the movie more money than maybe anything else. But also I would just point to the marketing of the movie. This movie, it's a bad movie, but even if it was a good movie, I think the marketing for this film was some of the worst that I had ever seen for a superhero film, definitely in recent memory. It felt like at every opportunity, people involved with this film could have displayed confidence in it. They chose not to. And whether that's, I mean, they throughout the production of that movie and throughout all of late 2014 when Toby Kebbell talks about Victor Domashev and being an internet troll and that's Dr. Doom, I mean, and fans were already just burying this movie because so much of it sounded so bad. And there was never any reassurance from the studio. They just let all the negative buzz continue to build and get louder and louder, and then just gave a really by the numbers, very plain, dull trailer back in February. And for all this talk of possibly tying in Fantastic Four to X-Men, do what Marvel did. Like, if you have one hit franchise, which Marvel had with Iron Man, talk about the plan to tie everything up. If they've already got the hit franchise in X-Men, talk about bringing Fantastic Four into it to share some of the goodwill from your X-Men brand, but they didn't want to do it, which painted this picture that they don't want to risk tarnishing X-Men with how bad this Fantastic Four movie is. That's kind of how I was reading it, and I think that's where they missed some chances there. And then, of course, being at their Hall H panel in Comic-Con, which was just pitiful. Nobody looked like they wanted to be there. It really sounded, I mean, that panel was almost as like it was some cross between a eulogy and apology from everybody who was there presenting the movie. Nobody really seemed excited about it. And then then the week the movie's coming out, you have Simon Kinberg saying, well, it's not a disaster, and you have Miles Teller saying, I haven't seen it yet, but I don't expect it to do well because these kinds of movies never do well on Rotten Tomatoes, even though Iron Man and Dark Knight and Guardians and Avengers and all these other movies are in the 90s in Rotten Tomatoes, and there's several more in the 70s and 80s on Rotten Tomatoes. It just all sounded like nobody believed in this.
I've said this on Twitter. I want to call Josh Trank Bizarro Trevorrow. Because I really, like, when you look at these two guys, the arcs of their careers are
the same.
Very similar. Yeah, I mean, they started with this micro-budget thing that found an audience, and then they were handed this mega production. And this goes to what I was saying earlier, right? This goes to the studio just as much as it does Trank. I mean,
yes.
There's all kinds of issues with Trank, but Fox, there was no attempt to nurture this. It was full steam ahead because we need to get
Sure.
something out by hook or by crook. Now you were talking about Jurassic. They delayed that by a year
Right.
because it wasn't ready.
Right.
I mean, whereas with this, it's like clearly this guy was not ready. He was not prepared. And I mean, I don't, there was this long article in I think it was the Hollywood Reporter last week that gets into all of the nitty gritty. But I mean, this is I want not the documentary, the docudrama about the making of this.
The Aaron
Yeah.
Sorkin movie.
There you go.
This is John Schnepp's next documentary. I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
It needs to be.
For the death of Superman lives what happened.
Yeah.
This needs to be his next gig.
Now,
Well, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, well, I was going to say, I kind of want to get into what I thought.
Yeah.
With the third act, because here's what I'll say, because I'll be the guy. I don't know a lot about the Fantastic Four. Like, I've never read the comics. I don't know their story very well, so I think it was easier for me to just accept what was put in front of me at the beginning.
Sure.
And again, I mean, Sean's completely right. Like, there's a lot of little moments or snippets of dialogue that were really cringeworthy, and something I forgot what you said. There's already something you said that I was like, yeah, these are little things that stood out to me, but I was willing to get past them because I knew darker things were ahead. And it's this movie has a tempo, right? And Trank was obviously going because having seen Chronicle. This is Chronicle, by the way. It's about a spurned person who becomes the villain by the end and wants to destroy everybody and the world. Everyone needs to suffer. It's the same movie.
Chronicler.
Chronicler.
Yeah.
Chronicle harder. And but what I really felt like where this movie failed, and again, I'm just accepting what's put in front of me. I'm not comparing this to any other Fantastic Four story. I'm going with what they're giving me. So I'm following these kids, and then I actually like the whole thing where they were like, look, we invented this thing. Like, who knows who built, Apollo, the Apollo spaceship. You know what I mean? Like, they just know who was the first person to be out in space.
Sure.
So I kind of got that whole thing where they're like, well, we worked hard on this. We want to be the people to go over. I really dug that, actually. I was like, yeah, I can follow what they're feeling right now. And where the movie lost me was with Doom, because Doom is supposed to be this big bad for the third act, but they didn't build him up at all. The only line they give you about him is that he should be in jail for some reason. He's like the scientist that they're putting all their faith in, but they're like, that dude should be in jail.
Yeah. It's
All right. Like, what does that mean? Why does he have a key card?
Yeah, he lit some servers on fire, but that's just the thing is Dr. Franklin Storm just, he believes in people because reasons, and he wants, and they go ahead and he allows these people to be part of this project. But at least in the case of Victor Von Doom, at least we see talent that puts him there. I mean, because we see Reed Richards is writing this equation on the whiteboard, and Doom's like, no, you're an idiot, and he brushes it off with the dry erase with the eraser and corrects them. So at least we get a moment where we see the genius of Victor Von Doom, and that he plays a role in this, and does things that could not get done without him being there. So he totally advances the project and makes it work, which you don't get from Johnny Storm. You don't even really get too much of from Sue Storm. I'm just going to leave it alone and just say pattern recognition. Ugh. That's all I'm going to do. And even Ben Grimm. I mean, Ben Grimm has done so wrong in this movie, from its clobbering time to just disappearing for about 40 minutes,
Right.
to being brought back, which I appreciate that Reed was loyal to his buddy. Kind of sucks that nobody was loyal enough to Sue, who's worked on this project with them for
that too.
Maybe they could have called her,
Yeah, nobody decides to give her a heads up. I mean, yeah. And then, and Ben, this guy, you see where they're talking about making him this weapon for the government, which I understand the realistic part of it. And by the way, this is radio for most of you. I made quotation marks with my fingers.
Air quotes.
Yeah, I understand that part of it, but it just doesn't fit. I mean, the thought of Ben Grimm like going on a military mission where he has 43 kills and that actually gets explicitly mentioned in the film is just off. It's just off. And that's where I feel like so much of this stuff it becomes dark for the sake of being dark because it doesn't really explore that. It doesn't really get into Ben Grimm's trauma with
Yep.
And that's the thing, you can't, it's irresponsible to introduce some of these very dark, very serious things like the abuse of a child by an adult older brother, like somebody being forced to kill by the military, and not really digging into that and seeing what that means and what that does to somebody. This whole Sports Center highlight of what goes on with a lot of these characters is what's so bad about the movie. And if you look at Fantastic Four, fundamentally, and I don't really want to make it just about not being like the comic books, because I'm not like a comic book like fundamentalist to the point where I think like you have to do everything note for note like it is in the comic book. That's not how I feel. But there's a spirit of things. There's a reason things work, and I think Fantastic Four works so well because there's a family dynamic that works so well, and it carries through in all their stories. And that's gone from this because the Fantastic Four, first off, they're not very fantastic, but secondly, the four of them don't appear in the same frame until they go off to fight Doctor Doom at the end of the movie. So, I mean, this is a team, like, they are born as a team. Why does it take this long to bring them together? There is zero interaction between Ben and Johnny. There's barely any interaction. There's like 2 scenes of interaction between Reed and Sue. These characters are kept so separate throughout the entire movie that you don't see any real interaction between them. Like, I don't get why these characters even care about each other.
Right.
I didn't get that feeling at all.
Yeah. One of the things I point to is, in one of this movie's many montages, as they're building this teleportation machine, there's actually a clip of the whole group minus Ben eating Chinese. They're eating Chinese takeout, and they're smiling and laughing with each other. And the difference between this movie and movies that are good is that movies that are good will actually show you that scene. Because that's an important scene. That's characters bonding with one another, having fun with each other, so that way, when they're in danger later, you care more because you bonded with those characters by having a bit of fun with them, and you buy into the way that they care for each other. And I think that's what this movie really fails to set up. I feel like it's really more of just giving you an overview. This is almost like the movie wasn't made off of a script, but it was made off of a treatment. I mean, I'm not talking like a James Gunn 70-page treatment. I'm talking like a 10-page treatment. Is kind of what this movie seems like it was made off of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I was saying, like, it was on a trajectory. I was with it personally, but then it felt like the studio took a book off the shelf that was like, well, this is how a third act is supposed to go. So we're just going to screech the brakes and head left. With 30 minutes left in this movie, and then it was like all of a sudden Doom becomes this person he has not been set up to be, and they're like, well, he's the villain, so he's got to say lines like "Earth had its chance."
Yeah.
Even though I don't know why he said that, but he said it. And then there has to be a big blue beam shooting into the sky because
Brian, I was gonna bring that up because when we talked about Ant-Man, you told me, you were like, what I liked the best is that it didn't end with a big blue beam in the sky.
Yeah.
And after I got out of the screening, I sent you a picture where I was like, look, Brian, it ends with the blue beam.
Right. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting, and I'll say one more thing, and I'll let you speak, Zaki, is that going with this whole Doom, like, obvious studio, like, ham-fisting Doom into this thing so we can get this last 30 minutes. What I thought was funny is it's been brought up a lot, is they had to do a lot of tweaking and reshooting to get to this point in the movie, which is obvious with Sue Storm's wig. You can tell when she's wearing a wig and when she's not. And so that was always fascinating to me to see how they were, like, trying to force the story in another direction whenever she was wearing a wig. I was paying closer attention to what they were talking about.
That's so funny.
But what I thought was fascinating is that Dr. Doom doesn't have a mouth. So he can say whatever the hell they want him to say to make the story go the way they want, on a dime, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, and nobody ever says Von Doom with their face on camera.
Yeah, it's
That's how
it's funny that you say
that's how
that.
they changed the name from Domashev to Von Doom.
See, I had
Nice.
forgotten about the Domashev thing until later, like after I saw it, because it didn't even, like I had known about it, but I'd forgotten about it by the time I saw it. And then later on, I was like, oh yeah, that was like a thing,
Right.
Now, okay, so this thing is an unmitigated disaster. They've dated number 2 for 2017. That will not happen, of course. Which is
No.
I predicted that like a year ago that it would not be made. Here's my question: what happens next with this property? Because obviously something is
Will
going to
happen.
Something will happen.
Yeah.
So, Sean, what do you think?
Well, there's what I want to happen, and then there's what I think will happen. Now, I actually think I know that everybody at Fox right now is saying that they still are committed to the characters and they're going to find their way to make this franchise work. But Warner Brothers said the exact same thing after Green Lantern in 2011,
And Superman Returns in 2006.
Yeah, and and with Green Lantern, I mean that movie in its first 10 days made more than double what this movie has made in its first 10 days. And financially, I just don't see how Fox could justify making another Fantastic Four movie, and they have to be in production by 7 years from now, which is a long time in movies. I get that, but they've had a couple of at-bats with this, and they missed. And the first time they actually did well enough to make a second film, and then fizzled out. This one is as big of a disaster as there has been in the superhero genre. I mean, it's bad, and I can't imagine them making another one. And I know the logical thing is, well, let's reintroduce them in X-Men films, kind of like Marvel did with the Hulk in Avengers, and renew the interest that way.
Yeah.
The only problem is that people didn't hate the Incredible Hulk the way that they hate this Fantastic Four film. And
That's true.
And if I have an X-Men franchise that is actually doing well, better than it deserves to, but that's for another podcast. If I have an X-Men franchise that is doing really, really well, I would not want to risk tarnishing that with this brand that is suffering, that I have not been able to make work. I would pour all my energy, my time, my energy, my money, my resources, everything that I've got into building out this X-Men, this mutated version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the X-Men. That's what I would do, and I would just focus on mutants. And I would find a way to strike a deal with Marvel to not have to if I'm going to give them back Fantastic Four, why wait 7 years? We'll give you this. I'll give you this now if I can get something in return. The one bargaining chip that they want from Marvel is they want TV rights for X-Men, which Marvel has to agree to give them. And while it's normally you would think it's insane to trade movie rights for TV rights, but when it's movie rights that you are going to lose anyway, then why not get something back in something that helps build this other brand that's actually working well for you, create another revenue stream out of it. And then also, I mean, I don't think a deal like that would ever be as simple as a straight swap. It would probably also involve different negotiations on merchandise and things like that. Get all those deal points worked out, but I think that's the best way for Fox to get something out of it. Marvel, on the other hand, even if they got Fantastic Four today, they can't go make that movie. And it's not just because Phase 3 is already booked. It's because Fantastic Four needs a cooling off period before even Marvel can attempt to do it. But the immediate value in it for Marvel is the other characters. Like they're in Guardians of the Galaxy, like they can't use the Badoon, they can't use the Skrulls, they can't have, with all these cosmic things they're doing, you can't have Silver Surfer or Galactus. All of those things could be brought in more immediately while you wait to try and introduce the Fantastic Four at a later time within the MCU. So it's my dream scenario as a fan for Marvel Studios to get their hands on Fantastic Four, but I really think it actually is in the best interest of Fox to make a deal like this if they can get X-Men TV rights in exchange for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean that seems, that's sort of been the conversation over the past couple of days. Seems like you're saying that makes sense. Which, this being the industry, it probably won't happen.
Yes.
Although, I mean, then again, Sony made that deal with Disney, so stranger things have happened.
But there's a much better relationship between Sony and Marvel than there is
Very true.
between Fox
Sure.
and Marvel. There's no bitterness there. Marvel's not happy with the deals that they have with Fox, in that, which is why you don't get merchandise, because if they make merchandise on FF and X-Men, Fox gets a lot of that money.
Yeah.
Which Fox and Marvel are already in negotiations for the X-Men TV rights, and I'm pretty sure it's those merchandising percentages that are what's been discussed. But I really hope that now, Fox, if they really want to push this deal over the hump and get it done, dangling the FF movie rights as something that goes back to Marvel probably would allow Marvel to encourage Marvel to soften their stance on getting more merchandising points.
Well, there you go. You heard it here, folks. So this is not going to be the end of this story. We're gonna continue to see it develop. So we'll certainly follow that progress as it goes. And by the way, I just want to point out that I rewatched the previous two films from Fox, and I have to say, I've said this before, the second one, which is Rise of the Silver Surfer, really does get. It's not a good movie by any stretch, but it's perfectly fine. Like it's not terrible. It's certainly better than this. And I look at that and I'm kind of like, I wonder if Fox had said, let's just use the pieces that we have here and just make a better film rather than burning down the crop and replanting the field.
Right.
But that's the great unknown, because I mean obviously this new one will not even touch the box office of either of those two. So
No,
not even close.
it's not even close enough to see them.
Right. I got to add too. This has been quite the year for exploding heads.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Kingsman.
that's true. I didn't think about
Another Fox movie.
Matthew
This one. Yeah. Oh, there you go. There's the
connection.
link. Yeah.
So, well, as we wrap things up, just very briefly, I just wanted to mention that Yvonne Craig passed away.
I saw that.
Yeah, she played
wow.
Batgirl in the 1960s Batman series. So, very sad to hear that. So,
Yeah, that is it.
that literally just came across my wire as I was sitting here. So Sean, and by the way, I want to point out, Sean, I've been wanting to have you on for I don't even know how long, but I had like put it in my mental map like months ago. I was like, when Fantastic Four comes out, we're gonna have him on, and I had no idea it would turn out to be this catastrophe. But I'm glad it did, if only because you got to come on and really have a great conversation with us. So thank you really for coming on and hanging out with us.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, I honestly thought that Fantastic Four, months ago, not, in like the days before I saw it, but months ago, I thought Fantastic Four might just be a good movie that I didn't like as a Fantastic Four film.
That was exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
And no, it didn't quite go that way. So, but yeah, I've and I'll have to have you on. I've actually, for the same thing, I've also kind of had you earmarked to get on Modern Myth Media as well, because I know. Yeah, the first time that we podcasted together was Holy Batcast
That's right.
to debate the merits of The Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises, which you're a fan of. I'm less so, but here we are.
We can both agree it's better than Fantastic Four.
There you go. So now let people know where they can find you. You've got lots of places you hang your hat on the web. Where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so if you search anything, you're bound to find me somewhere. You can find me on Twitter at Modern Myth Media. The website is modernmythmedia.com. You could also find, for the Marvel show, that podcast is at Makin' Mind Marvel, no G. The show is actually called Making Mind Marvel. So you can find either Modern Myth Media or Making Mind Marvel on iTunes and Stitcher and everywhere else that you can find podcasts.
And there you go. And Brian, where are you online?
I have a blog at everythingbrian.blogspot.com, Brian with an I. I have a Twitter that I don't use, at everythingbrian. And the most active place you can find me is I write for the Bob's Burgers comic book. And issue 2 is currently out. Issue 3 will be out September 2nd, I believe. So I'm in issues 1, 2, and 3.
And that's available digitally and the old-fashioned way.
It's your local comic book shop, yeah.
Yeah, so either way, check it out. It is great.
Thank you.
And as for me, you can find me at my website. That's Zaki's Corner, ZAKIScorner.com. I'm also on Twitter, same, minus the .com. And, of course, my reviews, you can see them at Huffington Post, also at Philadelphia Weekly. And what am I missing, Brian?
Oh, man, you're everywhere. Just Google them.
See, I feel like it's better if somebody else says that. When I say it, just sounds.
Yeah.
Well,
if you want to find it, from the nude pictures leak, just Google.
Don't Google that. And of course, you can reach out to us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com, and our Facebook page is facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast. That brings us to the end of another show, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks once again to our guest, Sean Gerber, for joining us. We will absolutely have you back on sooner rather than later.
Sounds good.
And with that, my name is Zaki Hassan. On behalf of Brian Hall, this is the Movie Film Podcast. We will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Podcast, enjoy the show. Zaki and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.